All right, Aaron here with A23D, and let's go ahead and install these new single pixel cyclotron LED recessed light cups or kit here. So these basically are 4 individual RGB LEDs that will replace the factory LEDs on your Hasbro 1984 pack. So the first step would be splitting the cyclotron lid open, which I'm not covering in this video. There's other examples, and I might even have a video out there or two at some point. But essentially, once you get it open, you pop the white diffuser discs off of these LEDs, and then what you're going to want to do is there is a wire that's going into this first LED, and you'll either want to unsolder it or just clip it. And what I would probably do is just clip it like I did here, and then strip back all of the wires the little ways there, and kind of peel the ribbon cable apart very carefully because you don't want to split the insulation, and it's easy to do. This is not great wire. And then we want to remove these factory LEDs. To do that, there are other things out there, but the easiest way I use is these kind of flush cutters, and I just set down the cutters right on top of these little mushroom pegs. There's 3 of them on each. You just clip, 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 and then once you do that, you should be able to, with a little convincing, pull the factory LEDs out like this. Okay, so now what we're going to do is install this by, I'm going to use these solder seal connectors to join the wires. But the other way you can do it is you can solder the wires for these new lights right onto the factory circuit board, which is right here. And if you are good with the small soldering, you can solder to either these 4 pins or even these 4 pins. Essentially though, we have the 4 wires here, and this is for power, data, and ground and ground. Both these are going to go to ground because one's the ground for the LEDs and the other one's the ground for the cyclotron presence detection switch, so that it knows when you got the lid off. So again, let's go ahead and get these ready. So first things we're going to do is we're actually going to just install these light cups into position, and they are labeled with numbers on them. 1, this is 2, 4, which means it's 2 or 4, and that's just because that's the style of light mount. And then 3, and then of course 2 and 4. And they go like in this order here with the wires on the right hand side. It goes 1, 2, 3, 4. And all you have to do to install these, it's pretty simple. You might have to kind of tuck some stuff around a little bit. Sorry for a shaky cam here, but you just kind of grab the wires and bring them up along the sides here so they come out of the slots, kind of keep it pretty snug, and then you just push this down into position like this, and until it lines up with all the pegs, and it kind of starts to just sit flush. Now at this point, the best thing to do is you're going to want to keep this in place. You could use a dab of hot glue or some tape or something, but you're going to want to do something to kind of get this, to stay in position. So you could even use a soldering iron, melt the 2 plastic pegs and that together. Wouldn't recommend that because you want to probably be able to remove those later. And the other thing is it doesn't, once you have that like diffuser, if you put the diffuser back in, that kind of helps hold it in place too. So let's go ahead and do the same with this one, 2 and 4. We just kind of loop these up to the tops here. And these are a little trickier. This one kind of requires a little bit more force. And I do want to note to be a little bit careful because that top piece doesn't have much meat on it, and it will possibly separate, which I just did that, but that's okay. We can, and we'll redesign these for reinforcements a little bit, I'm sure. But then we can go ahead and put number 3 in. Same story. Move the wires up through the slots. Align the pegs. Push down. That one had a nice snap. Sometimes they do. And then the last one only has 1 wire. And it just goes in the same way. And we just kind of give it a little bit of a push in there. Okay, another nice snap. Now what you'll probably also want to do is tape these wires down as flush as you can so they don't interfere with the lid. But before we go any farther, let's go ahead and start with our wiring. And this is going to be important because you're going to want to pay attention to the order of the conductors here, which it's because it's a all black cable, so it has a black with a white stripe. The white stripe is the positive, and the middle is the data, and the one on the other side there is the ground. So actually it works out pretty well. So the one with the stripe goes to the yellow for power, and the one in the middle goes to the orange, and then the red and brown actually go to the last one together. So let's go ahead and start by we're going to take a solder seal connector like this, and we're going to come around to these wires like so. And what we're going to do is we're just going to, again, I'm going to peel back some of these wires some more, and I'm going to insert, I'm just going to kind of twist this and insert that far enough in to where the wire is in the middle of that silver ring. And then I'm going to do the same with this other wire. Okay, now that's ready to go. So now we use a heat gun, and I'm going to use a different kind of heat gun that's for like soldering here. And I'm just going to heat that up. You're going to see me kind of waving this guy around. If I can get it to stay working. And you can see it's shrinking. Shrinking. And we want to concentrate, see our heat until the solder kind of flows out in the center, and I just saw it kind of turn liquid. And then we kind of want to work around the back side there too. And generally give this kind of just, a pretty good amount until you see it kind of shrink and sit. And then that should be nice and bonded and soldered. And we got to let this cool down. But once it cools down, that connection will be solid. So then I'm going to go ahead and do the other two of these. And let's just do the same thing. We take the wire and slip this one into the middle. And we'll do the same with the middle wire here. A little tricky. You gotta make sure you get these guys kind of lined up. Okay. And then once again that's all in there, we can heat this up and get the same thing going. I'm going to try to not fry my fingers. I advise you not to fry your fingers. Be careful, this is hot. Alright, let's kind of work that on there. So, again, solder flows, the shrinks, and that one's done. And then finally, last but not least, are the final two. I'm actually just going to twist these two together because these do need to stay joined. And I'm going to see if I can get this. This might be a little tricky with this guy. Yeah, because it's kind of a tight squeeze. It's not really designed for these two wires, but these are really small wires, so we're going to do the same thing. Put this guy in there. Kind of get that all shoved in the middle. And get it all shrunk up.
Again, you should see some shiny silver solder start to flow out of the middle. And that took a while. Okay.
That one should be all done now too. Okay. All right, so now this is connected up. Again, the other method you could have done is soldering that, which I personally would recommend. But now we can secure these. But of course, first we should put this lid back on our pack, make sure it works. Okay, so let's go ahead and test things before we put it back together. But you should have everything taped down, and I would tape this down up here, the solder connectors here, that way they don't get in the way. Tape some down the side too, but just to kind of make sure the wires aren't in anywhere part where you think that they'll be visible. So let's go ahead, and then if you've got the LED adapter in there, and then you just go ahead and power it up. You can see now, yep, it's working just like it should. All right, so now we just put the lid back on and everything should be good to go. All right, and here's the Cyclotron after I've installed my recessed RGB pixels and LED translator box. Turn it on. You can see it's cycling like it should. There's red LEDs, and these do not have aftermarket lenses, and they don't currently have the diffusers, and that way you kind of have that depth. But you can do any combination of things you want. It looks much better than the stock 3.